Hi there. So I am now back with another video. Before I start talking about this dream that I wanted to discuss with you, as it is relevant to the process we need to go through for ascension whilst in this situation, this global pandemic lockdown situation. Before I go into that, I'd just like to discuss one thing. For many years, right from before I got online actually, the Nine told me that there were members of the light team, Starseed's light workers, if you will, in place strategically in different areas of life, of society, just like the Cabal had sort of infiltrated every area of society. So have the light, but they were not aware that they're light workers or starseeds, that only when the time was right would they step forward into their power, if you like, and move into that natural integrity that they have. And one of the places the Nine told me that there were many light workers is in the media. So even though we've got this fake news, this false news, this mainstream media, I'm just checking that this is recording. Yeah, it is definitely. We've got this mainstream media sort of complex of several different platforms all owned by the same people. Within this structure we have light, but they're just doing their jobs. But now we're at a point where that integrity is potentially, for many of these individuals, going to come before the rules of the job, if you will. And only last week the Nine told me that this is going to come into mainstream media, and this was in one of the videos that I did, that this would come into mainstream media. So I've just finished recording one video which is being uploaded now, so that's before this one, and I just took a break in between, and my daughter, who is newly awakened since all this, sent me a video and an article, and it's just happened today. So I'm not sure how much information you get over there in the States, in America, about our UK programs, our UK programs. I would have thought this would go viral, to be honest. You may have heard about it by the time you see this video. But it's just happened. We have a program over here called This Morning. It's on every weekday, and there's a couple of presenters, and they sit and talk about all sorts. It's typical mainstream stuff. And there's this presenter called Eamon Holmes. He's actually very well known, and he's been with the This Morning program for a long time. And they just had a caller in talking about, I'm not going to say it, the technology that is beyond, above 4G, the technology above that, saying all these conspiracy theories going around the internet, and it's on social media, saying that it's dangerous and it's going to harm us, and it's spread so far across social media. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's just gone crazy, and now there are people setting fire to the towers across the UK. I will add it's in other countries as well, but obviously they're talking about the UK. And then the presenter, Eamon Holmes, which is a mainstream presenter, said, this is what makes me, I won't quote word for word, but this is what makes me cross about mainstream media, because they say it's safe, but they don't know. They don't know it's safe. So how can they say it's safe when they don't know? Now that's all he said. And then the caller looked a bit sort of surprised, and then, oh, well, yes, I mean, obviously I agree, we need to sort of look into things. And anyway, basically this has made every single newspaper in the United Kingdom. It's absolutely massive, and I'll tell you why, because Eamon Holmes would have been under a gag order. If you've watched the film, I told you to watch Out of the Shadows, it explains all of that there would be some kind of what you might call a non-disclosure agreement in America. They would have been told what they can and can't mention. And for him to say this on national television, on mainstream national television, to an audience of millions, is really, really pretty big. Now, number one, this kind of corroborates what the Nine are saying about how this is going to come out on mainstream media. I don't for a single minute think Eamon Holmes is the only presenter on mainstream television that's going to start questioning the narrative in public. He's not going to be. There will be others. But also, I would just like to say that this links to the catch-22 situation that I was talking about in the last video that I did. I was talking about the cabal being in a catch-22 situation about telling us what they are doing. Well, this catch-22 situation is now going to apply here, because Eamon Holmes will be under a gag order. There will be certain things he's not allowed to say. He absolutely wouldn't be allowed to question the current narrative, and he absolutely has questioned the current narrative in public. So now the producers of the show, controlled by the cabal, depending on how far back you go, they will be in a situation where, if he would say this, if he said something like this under normal circumstances, he would lose his job. I mean, he would just lose his job. But the situation that's happening now, his comments have put the producers and the cabal in a catch-22 position. If they tell him to leave and he loses his job, then they will get what they want, because they don't want him on mainstream television anymore, because he's broken his word and he's now talking about things he's not supposed to talk about. But if he loses his job over this, then that's going to do one of two things. That's going to make people think, well, obviously he said something he shouldn't have said that's really wrong, and you know, he's spreading false information, which he wasn't. He was just saying, we don't know. That's all he said. But more than likely what it will do is it will make him look as though he said something truthful, just like they did with David Icke. David Icke recently recorded an interview, and they took it straight off YouTube as soon as it had been recorded. And then not only did they take it off YouTube, but they plastered it over every single newspaper, saying that it was false information, and everyone found it and went and watched it. And now people who've never heard of David Icke now know of him and have watched his whole interview. The same thing will happen if they sack Eamon Holmes. Then everyone will want to go back and look at the clip and see what he said, and it's pointing them towards questioning 5G. So things are backfiring on the cabal. That's why I brought this up, because I thought, you know, I was going to make a video anyway, and I thought that was an interesting point to bring up. And that's pretty big for somebody that well known on mainstream news, with that on a mainstream regular daytime program like this morning, with an audience of millions. It's a big thing for him to sit there and question the narrative. So good on you, Eamon. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to get to what I wanted to say. So this is going to be more of esoteric spiritual information here in this part of the video. So if you're not into that, and you don't believe in analyzing dreams, and that there is information coming in from beyond the five senses, if you will, then you might not like this next bit. But anyway, let's get into it. So 2 nights ago, I had an out-of-body experience. So if I take you back to how long this has happened for me, I've been having out-of-body experiences pretty much since childhood, but I didn't really understand them as a child. I don't have the greatest of memory of them. I just know things happened. But I wasn't really focusing on them in any particular way, because whatever happened to me, I had lots of unusual esoteric things happen to me as a child, but I thought it was normal. So I didn't discuss it particularly until I got to sort of more teenage years. And then I would speak to my father, who was an opera singer, but also a stage hypnotist. And then he became a hypnotherapist. So he worked with me with hypnosis from the age of about 11 years old. So up until 11, I didn't really discuss those experiences that much, but things started to become far more focused for me in my early 20s, I would say, when I remembered what was happening, and it wasn't necessarily pleasant. I was having very scary out of body experiences where I would come out of the body, I would be afraid, I would sense a dark presence, I'd feel like my body was paralyzed, all the things that happen to you in the early stages of astral projection. Obviously, I turned to my father, and I read several books on astral projection to find out what was happening to me. And I slowly learned to control the astral projections and the out-of-body experiences. I could trigger them at will, and I could actually control what was happening. And then I, over the years, slowly started to get more and more enjoyable experiences, to the point where they're just amazing now, and I don't have them that often, and I can't always trigger them at will. Often I do. But what usually happens when I come out of body, I will stay in my house, I'll walk around my house, and then I might decide I want to be somewhere or with someone, and conjure up that place or that person and go and visit them and talk to them. And sometimes I've met with non-human beings and extraterrestrial beings, and I've been to other countries, I've been to other planets and into space. But it's always been quite a gradual move from the way I remember, as in, if I want to go outside somewhere, I'll go out through the window and then fly somewhere. I'll find a portal which will take me to another planet, or I might use other forms of transport, like a hot air balloon, and I'll strap that onto me, and then I'll float somewhere, or I will fly, or I'll go under the sea and swim. That's kind of how I travel. But this particular dream, this particular out-of-body experience 2 nights ago, so this would have been early morning yesterday, the 12th of April, early morning on Easter Sunday. I have never experienced anything like this before. Never. I came out of the body, and usually I just sort of sit up and step out, or I float out. And this particular occasion, I was actually on my side. Normally, it's much easier if you're on your back, because you can just float out. But if you're on your side, you sort of come out sideways. But anyway, I came out of body and went straight to fly out of the window. But instead of, often I swim in the air, or I just sort of glide. But this time, like in the Superman films, when Superman sort of gets into this position where he's like this and he shoots off across the planet. That's what I did. I went into this sort of, my body got into a position that I was like a rocket or a dart with my hands like this, just like Superman. And I shot out of my window, and I was literally going at the speed of light, speed of thought. I have no idea, but I knew I was going millions and millions of miles away and just shooting off. And I've never done this. I've always stayed within the vicinity of my body, or I've visualized somewhere, but I've never traveled that way and known that I have gone so far. After a while, I then stopped and I thought, have I died? I actually thought, if I've gone so far away from my body and so fast, I've died. Now, often when I'm in a very profound, intense, out-of-body experience, the 9 are with me and they will talk to me. I looked down and I could see this long silver line. I've never seen the silver cord that you supposedly have in astral projections or out-of-body experiences. So I thought, is that the silver cord? And the 9 said, no, that is the vertical axis of the matrix. So I realized I was traveling along my own vertical axis. This is what happens when we leave the body. This is, the 9 call this Stargate Ascension. If we are utilizing this particular tool for ascension, but it also happens when we do die and leave the body. So again, I said, have I died? Because I've gone so far away. How could I have gone so fast and so far away and still be alive? Now, normally I can find a dualistic point where I can feel my body asleep, and I can feel where I am in the astral projection, out-of-body experience at the same time. Found that a bit difficult, so I did wonder if I died. I wasn't afraid, I have to say. I wasn't scared at all. I just thought, I don't want to die yet. And I actually said, I don't want to die yet. I've got work to do. I need to go back. I still have work to do. The 9 didn't answer me, but it was when I said I need to go back, I have work to do, that's when I felt my body. But I couldn't feel that I was breathing. So I quickly took a breath, and I remember going and gasping. So whether I actually had stopped breathing while I was zooming across in my astral body, I have absolutely no idea. I just remember that I took this gasp of breath, and then I knew that I was alive and I was breathing, so I could go back to the astral body and continue. But this time I went a lot slower. Now, the 9 told me that I was on my way to the galactic core. The reason why I was on my way to and I've never been there in an astral projection, by the way, ever. I've been to another planet. I think it was the Pleiades. I'm not sure. It might have been Lyra. It only happened once. And I've also been next to planets and seen a couple of planets. So I've been in space. Oh, and on another occasion, I actually saw a star, and I saw that star come down to Earth and incarnate as a child. Normally, it's only pieces of stars that incarnate as a child. This particular child incarnated as the full star went into the child, and this was a few years ago. But I've never been to the galactic core. I felt the energy of the galactic core in a meditation and in Merkaba travel and all of that, but I've never actually been there in my astral body. So the 9 said I was on my way to the galactic core because I was going to 0 point, because 0 point is the place of pure creation where I can access a download to teach to others about how to move through an ascension process while in the lockdown process. There are many, many ways to go through ascension, and it's all in the books the 9 have written. Obviously, I'm not going to be writing a book right now. I would be putting all this in a book. I'm not going to be writing a book right now because it will take so long to write and so long to edit, and it won't be even ready until the end of the year or next year. This information needs to get out now, immediately. This is what the 9 have said. They've told me, forget the book for now. You are focusing on videos because information needs to get out now because we're in that period. So the downloads are coming to me in the same way that they would if I was writing a book. But as I said, I won't be putting them in a book. I'm putting them in the videos anyway. So they told me I'm on my way to the galactic core to get this download. But I stopped once I realized that I was too far away from my body and I was afraid that I had died. I stopped and I didn't continue to the galactic core. But I was far enough into 0 point to receive the download. But where I was, they told me, I'd actually entered some kind of portal zone that had portal travel within it, but it was some kind of zone within the asteroid belt. And I stopped traveling to look around me, and I could see these huge, like, rocks that were sort of rocks and stars at the same time. And as I looked into the rock, I could see civilizations. So I could see what that civilization had been. And the 9 told me that where I was, what I was seeing, I was partly close to the galactic core, but not quite in it. And somewhere near the asteroid belt, somewhere near the Milky Way. I really don't know where I was, but somewhere between the asteroid belt, the Milky Way, and the galactic core, somewhere in that vicinity, in a portal that is outside of time and space. So I wasn't necessarily out there as in the way our universe presents it in a physical sense. I was in the time matrix. This was how the universe is presented in a time sense. So if you want to call this our reality as space-time, I was in time-space. And the long silver line that I thought might that be the silver cord, and maybe it is the silver cord, people are actually seeing the vertical axis of their matrix. Maybe that's what the silver cord is, but the 9 said that's the vertical axis. So I'm traveling along my own vertical axis. If you're familiar with the 9's work about the matrix, the vertical axis, the horizontal, the diagonal, you will understand this structure. So I'm in this place and I'm looking around, seeing these large sort of remnants of stars or rocks. And then the 9 told me that what I was seeing was Tiamat, the remnants of Tiamat, which was a huge, huge planet, so much bigger than the Earth. And it was destroyed in one of the timelines. It was destroyed in the timeline that we're in due to an electric polarity crash. That could also be interpreted as logos mind beings presenting their polarity to one another, which could be interpreted as war or battle. However, if you interpret it as war or battle, you're going to visualize extraterrestrials or aliens having a fight, you know, like in Star Wars. It wasn't quite like that. These are logos group soul mind structures that had a polarity sort of I don't really know the word to use. It's not war or battle. It's like it's like a working out of polarity, but it comes together like a crash, like a storm, a massive storm, electrical storm in time space and space time as well. So Tiamat was destroyed. And the remnants of Tiamat, some of it has become part of the Earth in some way. There's been a sort of a reconstruction going on with the Earth, and that's using parts of Tiamat. And there's also these huge remnants. And as I looked into each remnant, I could see what was inside the remnant. And I was seeing stone steps, stone structures, very sacred, and pyramids and obelisks. These were structures that they were in all of the rocks and all of the stars. So these are sort of the building blocks for physical planetary structures. So when a planet forms, it doesn't just form as a flat disk if you're on the flat Earth thing, you know, because yes, that's a timeline, but predominantly they're spheres. Planets are birthed as spheres, and within the structure you have similar structure in all of the third dimensional planets that are created in matter. So you have these temples and stone structures and sort of hills and massive pyramids, and they're like centers that anchor energy into the Earth, and then the center, the core, into the planet, and the core of that planet is like a generator, like a crystal, and it communicates with other planets through these structures. But they're sacred and they're used for worship, and I could see all of this in Tiamat, and that's where I got the download. So it was kind of like a non-physical being with no body at all had sort of touched me on my head, or put something in my pineal gland, or created some kind of awakening. One could refer to it as a flash of galactic light, if you will, but it's like something touched me, but it wasn't a body, it wasn't anything physical, it was energetic. And I caught the download. It was a download. It was given to me in 1 second. So then I could come back to the body and wake up, and then I had to unravel the download. And I knew how to do this because I've done this before with different astral projections. What happens in an out-of-body experience is, in real time, you can be in the out-of-body experience for like 3 minutes. But when you come back to the body, what you've actually got is 3 hours of information, or 3 days of information, or 3 lifetimes of information, or 3 million years of information, 3 centuries. I say 3 because everything seems to come in this Trinity form. So I've been given this massive download, and to be honest with you, I could write an entire book on this download alone. But as I said, I'm not going to write a book because the information needs to get out now, because it's connected to what's going on. So the download, the first thing was about Tiamat. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Tiamat. It doesn't really matter. There's many names given to this huge and beautiful planet. She was the queen jewel planet. She was the jewel of this solar system, and she was like the mother planet, and Marduk was the father planet, and Earth is the daughter, is what I'm told. Anyway, what I was shown when I unraveled the download is that every single starseed, I mean every single starseed, and there are few things that actually touch every starseed. There are often some nuances and some differences. Now, no matter what planet you are from, what memories you have, what dimension you connect with, every single starseed has a connection with Tiamat. Every single one. And it's so strong, it's deeply emotional. And the emotion that comes forward is this absolute love and harmony and unity, but grief as well. Her destruction created a grief pulse for light year miles throughout galaxies. Tiamat's destruction put out this pulse amongst galaxies and galaxies and universes and quantum realities. So every starseed knew, every starseed here today on Earth heard the call, heard the destruction. Coming to Earth, many souls from Tiamat and from Marduk reincarnated onto Earth, but the starseeds answered the call. The destruction of Tiamat began a whole series of events taking us to today, because this was all the same, not the same people, but the same polarity structure, the same service to self, service to others play out that caused Tiamat's destruction is playing out today on Earth. So it's all connected. Anyway, as I unraveled the download and I remembered being there and looking at these stone steps and look that was in this sort of planetoid that was a remnant of Tiamat, and I could see these beings, and the 9 were with me as well, but these beings were other beings. They were kind of like ancient priests from Tiamat, and they were giving me this download and telling me to teach this download for now, for the time that we are in, you know, global pandemic, global lockdown. Now, this is for those who are consciously ascending, those who've made a plea. I wish to go through an ascension process. I know I'm ascending. I know I'm ascending with the Earth and I'm going to the new Earth. This is a template. It's not the only template. It's not the only way to ascend, and it's not the full ascension template. These are just 3 steps that are just the beginning of many, many more steps yet to take place. Yet within these 3 steps is everything, because it's a fractal of the whole. So the reason why the 9 give 3 steps, again, as I've said, this is about 3, this is about Trinity. Everything must be 3. There is the male, there is the female, and then there is the creation between the 2, the moon, the sun, and the creation, the positive, the negative, whichever way you want to look at it. This is always the polarity, and then the apex of that polarity, the creation, and that makes the whole. So that's why it's coming through in 3 steps. There are multiple steps to ascension. I'm not saying that there are not infinite steps to ascension, and I'm not saying this is the only way to ascend. Now, I have also been told that there will be those that will reject this template, this teaching. That's fine. You know, you can reject it, but there are those who will find this extremely useful, and it will give them relief, because they've been looking for something. Many of you are looking for something. You don't know what you're looking for, and you're thinking, I'm waiting for this thing. And what you're looking for is, how do you navigate ascension while you are in lockdown and global pandemic? In global pandemic and lockdown, we are under psychological attack. This is psychological warfare. How do we continue with ascension while we're in this place? Now, as I said in the last video, locking you down and isolating you is creating a greater rays of light, more DNA activation than ever before. This is ascension. The lockdown itself is sort of, it's not creating ascension. Ascension was started long ago, but it's kickstarting it massively. It's like they're trying to prevent ascension. They're running around trying to prevent awakening and prevent ascension, and everything they're doing is creating it. It's creating it through chaos and a lot of you know, suffering for many, but it's creating it. But this is for those who know they are going through ascension, and these are the steps to take within the physical reality. It's to do with the emotional presentation you create. So this was what they gave me. And yes, this is from the Nine, but it was like the Nine were guiding me there and looking after me. But the information came from Tiamat and the ancients of Tiamat. And I've never really connected with this that much before. This is completely new form of connection for me. So this is the Tiamat ancient masters within this beautiful temple in the time-space reality that's in this little band, or this massive, huge, infinite band that's between the galactic core, this Milky Way area, and the asteroid belt. Okay, so they're talking about this 3-step plan and how to navigate this through within our thoughts and our emotions, because our thoughts and our emotions will create a reality for us. Now, one needs to understand the 2-world split theory, or 2-world split teaching, which is very much about what you create for yourself individually and globally, and that there may well be a split of reality where one timeline is created for one group of people and a different timeline is created for another group of people, and they experience different realities. So they're splitting into 2 different planets. They're on 2 different planets, and then there is the 3-world split as well, because you have to have the Trinity as well. So there are potentially 3 predominant timelines. I've spoken about this before. So this teaching that the 9 are giving is taking you to a direct alignment with where your future comes from, where the future broadcast is coming from. If you are a heart-centered, love light-based being, polarized service to others, you are heading for the Paradise timeline, the Ascension timeline. And there are many ways to kind of get to that same place. And some of them are quite smooth and some of them are chaotic. And we are in a more of a chaotic one, but there are degrees of chaos. So that, and it can be drawn out for longer years, or it can be very quick and occur in your lifetime. There are so many different nuances, and everything is changing so rapidly there because of all the different thought structures that are taking place. So what we do is we still the thought structure, and then we take these 3 steps, and we can do this slowly over weeks, months, however long. We can do this in a day. Some of you have done it already. You don't need to actually do it, but you might not realize you've done it. And everything I'm saying, you're going to think, I've done that. Yes, I've done that. Others might be a bit confused and think, well, I thought I'd done it. I don't need to do this other bit. So I'm going to go through the 3 steps. Now, some people have gone straight to step 3 and they haven't done step 1 and step 2. These are the people that are already in the love light, the meditation, the open heart, activation of the heart chakra, beautiful, but they haven't integrated what's going on in the physical reality. They've gone straight to step 3. There are others that are just at step 1 and others that have gone to step 2. There are those who are at step 3 and think step 2 is really, really bad, and I can tell you why. And there are all sorts of other nuances of people within these different steps. So, and it doesn't have to be done linearly. I'm explaining it linearly so you understand it. So this is what we do when it comes to awakening and ascension while in this situation of global pandemic and global lockdown, and that is yet to come, as in the attempt to create the New World Order timeline. That's what they're trying to do. We're in the Ascension timeline, but it's been hijacked, and there are bleed-throughs from the original New World Order timeline, which is just appalling to look at and so much worse than where we are now. But there's bleed-throughs being hijacked, being presented like a false timeline. I've spoken about that before. So these 3 steps. Number 1, step 1, understanding the dark plan. Now, crystal individuals, you don't need to analyze this that deeply. You don't need to go into deep analysis. You can just be aware, okay, this is the dark plan and I kind of know it. There are many crystals that reject this. They're so sensitive. They really are such sensitive beings. The indigos are as well, but they've got this sort of warrior side that kind of assists them. Full 100% crystals are healers. They're healers and they hold the light. So when they look at the dark plan, it's, I don't want to look at this. If you want to go through Ascension now with the global lockdown occurring and what is coming down the line, this needs to be looked at. Now, you don't have to analyze deeply, but you need to understand the dark plan. What is the dark plan? Who are the Cabal and the Illuminati? What are they doing? What do they want to do and why? That is what you need to understand in step 1. Now, I could go into all of that. I've already done it. So go back and look at previous videos. And the 9 have spoken about this since I got online in 2008. And there are light workers and channels and people that are completely third dimensional. And they are out there telling us. David Icke lays it out pretty well. He doesn't necessarily go into the potential nuances of Trump and Q and all of that. He just sees it as it is. But he sees the dark plan. Go watch him. I've said this to a few crystal beings and they're like, I don't want to watch that. It's really dark. And okay, don't watch David Icke, but you need to understand the dark plan, however you find out. Then, once you understand the dark plan and you've looked at it, oh, I'll just mention the indigos. Indigos, you are going to want to understand it. You are going to want to analyze it, and you probably already have and are. I don't need to tell you because your drive will be to delve deep. So crystals, find an indigo that you trust and let them tell you what the dark plan is. And indigos that are doing the teaching to the crystals, be aware of their sensitivity, but there are things coming down the line that are not going to be easy for crystals to see. It's better to learn this now before it actually happens in the physical reality, because then when it does happen in the physical reality, you've had a little bit of advanced practice, advanced warning. You're prepared. So the indigos are going to want to discover what the dark plan is. They're going to want to analyze. So you do that because that's your path. When you see the dark plan, many different emotions can come up. At first awakening, it's horror, disbelief, anger, fear is a massive one. All these emotions, these need to be integrated. So all of this is step 1. Now, you don't have to integrate it all in one day. What's happening with me is I'm sort of going into fear because I've discovered something new about the dark plan. There are things about the dark plan that I didn't know, and I've been speaking to the 9 since 1993, and I've been out online since 2008 with this information, and there are things about the dark plan that I didn't know, and I'm finding it out and I'm thinking, okay, this is something new that the dark plan entails. I didn't know about this one. I look at it, oh, that's horrible, oh, that's awful, oh my goodness, that is fearful, and I get afraid. I've told you already, I have a fear of the forced vaccines and the microchip. Because I see their energies and it's so dark and so horrible, and the thought of being thrown into a dark tunnel with horrific beings, vampires trying to claw at you, that's what it feels like when you look at what's in the vaccine and the microchip. So I've had to learn to take that fear and allow myself to feel it and then integrate it. Now, what I'm going to tell you is the response to many, many questions I've had. The questions are, what do we do about the forced vaccine and these microchips, Magenta? Everyone's afraid. It's not just me. There are so many starseeds and light workers that will not take vaccines. There are truthers that will not take vaccines. There are many, many, many people that know about the vaccine agenda and will not take vaccines, and they will not give those vaccines to their children, and they will not have a microchip or a digital certificate on their body. So I've had so many questions. What are we going to do? Now, these 3 steps will give you the answer, because you're creating the higher dimensional ascension timeline. There are no microchips and no vaccines in the ascension timeline or in ascension. So these 3 steps will assist you, and I will explain that as I go along. So the next step is to integrate the emotions. Now, you can do this in days. So I may feel fear. And then I'll integrate that fear and I'll feel really good for a couple of days. And the 9 are talking to me and I'm understanding the picture, and I'll tell you. Then I'll go and find something else out and I'll be in fear again. And then I'll have to integrate that. So it doesn't have to be done in one day or 1 week, or it's a process. And you can move to step 1, 2, and 3, go back to step 1 again, stay in step 3, and then see in step 1 another bit of the dark plan. And this is the whole issue. The dark plan has not been fully revealed. Many of us know it to quite a good degree, especially psychics who are able to see it. But when it's revealed in its physical form, it's different when we see it happening around us than when we've heard about it in a psychic or spiritual sense. These things are going to happen to us. They're going to come. We need to be aware before they come so that we can think, right, I knew that was coming, or I knew that that might come. So this is giving us warning and preparation for these things that are to come. So understand the dark plan and then integrate the emotions. Now, how you integrate, my book Masters of the Matrix teaches about this. There are other teachings about how to integrate. So go find teachings about integrating the shadow, integrating the dark. I've done interviews where I speak about the Masters of the Matrix teachings. You can download the book on Kindle, or you can find these teachings from many other teachers out there. There are many teachers teaching how to integrate your emotions. It's not about rejecting fear. It's not about rejecting anger, fear, horror, and all of those things. It's about feeling them and integrating them, because that gives you empowerment. So that's step 1. And you do step 1, 2, and 3, potentially all at the same time in a non-linear sense. I'm laying it out for you in a linear pattern, but you don't have to do it that way. So that is step 1. Understand the dark plan, integrate the emotions that you feel when you understand the dark plan. Okay, step 2. That's where it gets a bit complicated for some people, and they've got a little bit they've misunderstood what's been going on here. Step 2 is a declaration of sovereignty. This is you laying down your boundaries. This is all to do with permissions. As I was saying in the last video, the cabal have to show you what they are doing. And if you don't reject that, if you don't stand against it, then they feel that they've been given permission. A, it means it will work for them, which it isn't anymore. And B, it means you've given permission because you didn't not give permission. You have to actually make a declaration of sovereignty. Now, you can do this on your own at home in your bedroom with no one seeing you. You can do it publicly. You can do it by writing. There are many, many different ways. I'm going to direct you to a video recently made. I think it was made on about 4 days ago. Losing track of time here on a physical level. I'm going to direct you to a video that was created by Laura Eisenhower. Laura Eisenhower, she is, you know, like me, she's a spiritual teacher, and she's someone who's an experiencer as well of extraterrestrial presence. She's the granddaughter or great-granddaughter of the President Dwight Eisenhower. I've done an interview with her myself, with Jeffrey Dougherty, which we did last year. Lovely interview. You can go and find that on my channel. She has a link with her great-grandfather. Her and Dwight Eisenhower, the president, are linked, like she's continuing his work, but in a spiritual sense. So she made a video, and it's called Message to the Dark Controllers. You can Google it on YouTube and go and find it. And what she's actually doing here is making a declaration of sovereignty. You do not have to do it the same way as her, but that video will give you a template of how it's done, rather than me having to do one as well and showing you how it's done. And I may well do one, and I think it's a good idea if many of us get together and do one. But the most pressing priority for me is getting this information out. So Laura Eisenhower has done this. So go and watch her video, see how she is making that declaration of sovereignty as a message to the dark controllers. You might disagree with a little bit of one part, or disagree with another bit, but the point is she's showing you how to make your declaration of sovereignty. This is about laying down your boundaries. What this does is make the statement that you do not accept, that you do not consent to this control. You do not give permission. You do not give permission for vaccines, for microchips, and for the whole control plan. You do not give permission for Earth to be controlled. You do not give permission for these beings to have dominion over the Earth. You make the statement that you are a sovereign being, and you do not allow this. This is about your boundaries. Your personal boundaries can be crossed by people that you know, and you have to learn in life to make a statement. This is the solar plexus power. I've spoken about this before. Now, there are people who misunderstood this and wrote to me and said, what you are doing is asking for more of the same, because the basic law of the universe is, if you make the statement, I do not consent, you are working in the negative. Therefore, the universe will give you exactly what you are saying you don't want, because you are looking here at universal law and the law of magnetic attraction. What I would say to those people is, you are right, you are correct. But if you work with step 3 as well, then this turns your declaration of sovereignty, step 2, your denial of permission, into a contract, because it neutralizes the negative that you are giving out and turns it into a positive. And I will explain that by telling you what step 3 is. Now, step 3 on its own could be seen as giving permission. Step 3, and this was the hardest one. I understand about this. I understand the philosophy. The 9 have spoken to me about this before. But to actually be there in this Milky Way galaxy in the middle of the asteroid belt, looking at this temple with this being and all these stars everywhere, and having them put this monadic download into my body mind and into the pineal gland, or receive this flash of cosmic light, however you want to explain it. When I saw what I had to teach, it's very difficult, because you are looking at multiple emotions. And step 3 is, through forgiveness and gratitude, you send love to those beings. Now, you don't have to think of the actual characters themselves. You don't have to take a politician or someone who funds vaccines and sit them in front of you and tell them you love them. I mean, come on. That's not how it's done. But what you do is take the service to self structure. And that will include all those people, because you do actually have to love them, because they're you on another level. And this is all about the circle of love. And if you break it, you are not whole yourself. So this is going to a whole other level of thinking and feeling as you go through these 3 steps. And within these 3 steps, I'm sure you will see there are multiple steps. I'm just laying them out as 3, as these beings were showing me. This flash of light was downloading to me. So you take the service to self structure and you stand opposite it as a service to others structure, and you literally allow yourself to feel love. So you go through forgiveness and gratitude. Now, you can do all this in step 2, and if you listen to Laura Eisenhower's video, you'll see that she did that in step 2. So it's the same sort of thing. You can do it within your declaration of sovereignty, but the 9 have these beings and the 9 have shown me how to do this in 3 steps. So you feel gratitude. I'm grateful, very grateful for you standing as a catalyst. I forgive you. I forgive you for all your dark deeds and your manipulations. That's a difficult one, because on a physical level, it's not very easy to forgive them. And you don't want to forgive them to the point where you're no longer able to do step 1, which is understanding the dark plan and integrating the emotions. Step 2 is a declaration of sovereignty, and that's where you are the warrior. You're not in a state of forgiveness in step 2, which is why why these beings have broken them up into 3 steps. When you make your declaration of sovereignty, you're not forgiving them. You are telling them, no, absolutely no, I do not give permission and I do not consent. And we need to do this on a grand scale. We need to get all the starseeds and truthers and light workers and aware individuals to do this. But a lot of the spiritually aware individuals and the light workers are rejecting this because they think it's a negative law of attraction. If you switch over and simultaneously you're looking at the step 3, gratitude, thank you for everything, forgiveness, I forgive you and I love you, and you project love towards the service to self structure, I love you. When you merge this with the declaration of sovereignty, no, I do not give permission, thank you, I forgive you, I love you, but no, I do not give permission. Do you see what you are doing here? You are making your boundaries firm but fair with love. This is how to move into an ascension process while all this is going on. Now, other things are going on here. What these beings downloaded to me, I keep saying the 9 because I'm not used to having information coming in from a structure that isn't the 9. And yes, they were there with me. So what I'm being told here is, when we reach critical mass for the declaration of sovereignty and the standing within our boundaries and not giving permission, and we do this at the same time as step 3, so we're not creating a negative law of attraction response, the universe is understanding what we are doing here because we are moving into empowerment. This is the vertical axis which I was traveling down in my astral projection, which is the sword of Excalibur. It's the same thing. You are a warrior. So I'm traveling down this at light speed, not to get away from my body, so that my understanding would be, this is the sword. This is Excalibur. I was traveling towards the galactic core across Excalibur. Excalibur is the Indigo Codex. Excalibur is that which you say no with. If we can reach critical mass with individuals working with step 1, that's already at critical, well, that's high at the moment. Understanding the dark plan and integrating the emotions is looking good. It's waking up exponentially every day. But if we can reach critical mass with a declaration of sovereignty and a simultaneous love, forgiveness, gratitude, I love you, and genuinely feel it, really send love to those beings and genuine gratitude. Thank you for giving us a huge, great ascension boost, or giving us the free will to be able to make choice, or allowing this planet to ascend, or however you want to look at it in that way. When you do this and you get to critical mass, you're actually creating such a high level of manifestation that it creates this grid or network around the planet, which has already been in place for a long time. What we're adding to that grid is the laying down the boundaries of what's happening now. No, I will not accept all of the things that you are trying to bring in because of pandemic virus, regardless of who started the virus, or regardless of what the virus is, whether it's technology beyond 4G, or whether it's an actual virus, whether you can catch a virus, whether you can't catch a virus, none of that matters. Well, it does. I mean, that's all part of step 1, understanding the dark plan. That's all step 1. When you get to step 2, all of that is irrelevant. It's about, I will not accept this, and I do not give permission. I do not give permission. Step 3, I love you. I forgive you, I am grateful to you, and I love you. When this reaches critical mass, and I truly see the light workers doing this, and many already have, they've already done it, and I'm giving confirmation to them. But when that reaches critical mass, this grid is then powered up with what's happening now, and this assists with this snowball awakening on so many levels. It ensures that the hijacking that's taking place at the moment, bleeding through these New World Order aspects, that will start to crumble. That will start to disintegrate so that the Ascension timeline becomes free again and unhijacked. How that will look on the physical level, if we can get to critical mass with this and go out and make your declaration of sovereignty, make a video like Laura Eisenhower did, flood YouTube with thousands of videos. If you don't want to do that, say it on Twitter, say it on some other social media, write an article, do it at home privately. It doesn't have to be seen. Just get that energy of your declaration of sovereignty out there. Understand that if this is done with the love conjunction in a merge, the universe is not going to give you more of the same, because the love is the protection for that. It turns it into an integrity. It turns it into a sovereignty. It becomes Excalibur, your vertical axis. This is your backbone. This is your spine. That's what it's there for, energetically. You stand up and you say, I love you, but no. That is what we must do. And I know many of you have done this. Now, when the hijacking starts to crumble, whenever that occurs down the line, and there's so many things coming up, so much information, so much shocking information yet to come out, so much that's good and so much that's awful, and it's all there. And not all of it is going to manifest physically, but a lot of it will, and we have to navigate through. What that's going to look like, I was told when I had this download, this monadic download, this vision, is there are two structures that will, and it looks like the timeline is there for this, two structures that will crumble. One is the World Health Organization and the other is the United Nations. There's also the European Union, but that wasn't in the download. That's kind of working in a different way. It's these two structures, predominantly the World Health Organization, the WHO. This is like pivotal with a lot of this hijacking. It is a multiple black box program, and when you take one black box, you find another black box inside, and then you take that one off and you find another one inside. The core of the black box, and we've already found that the core of the iron core of the Armageddon New World Order timeline has been dismantled, so the matching structures must fall. The black box program of the World Health Organization will come down to the core and will crumble. When you start to see this happen, it's absolutely game over for the cabal. That is the beginning of all the structures falling. We've got the banks, the money, all the other stuff. It's all crumbling and falling in different ways, in different times. I can't tell you when, but on a spiritual level, we are massively helping to, and we're not doing this in retribution. We mustn't think, do you know what? These structures are going down. Yes. Let's do this, that Magenta says. Let's do the step 1, 2, and 3 to get the World Health Organization to crumble. It's not a black magic psychic attack. That's what they do. No, 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 no. We aren't doing that because we're taking step 3. None of this is a psychic attack. Step 2 is simply exercising boundaries and a declaration of sovereignty. Step 3 is genuine love. We must genuinely love them. They are us. They are us. We're only one soul, and they've incarnated on the other polarity. And we must recognize that. I've spoken about this before, but this is crucial now. So that will start this crumbling, this black box, these black box programs, getting to the core of them, with the World Health Organization being a major part of this, and the UN, but mostly the WHO, will start to crumble. Do I see this? Yes, I do. I mean, they'll cling on and they'll try and reorganize the black boxes, meaning they'll try to cling on to it and change the structure and pretend it's this bit and then save this bit. No, eventually it's going, and the new structure will be of the light. There will be a new health organization that will be based on fairness and love. And, you know, I truly hope I'm here to see this. I truly hope I I am here to see this occur. I don't know how long this will take. There's much that's occurring in our lifetimes, but obviously we are setting up this planet for thousands of years for our descendants. Is it there? Yes, it's there. It's a massive potential. And when we reach critical mass, are we at critical mass now with step 2 and 3? We aren't far off, I have to say. We're at critical mass for the awareness and the philosophy behind it, but are we at critical mass of actually putting it into practice emotionally? And remember, if you want to love the cabal and the deep state and the Illuminati, the way to do it is to mix step 2 with it. I love you, but no, because if you just say I love you, you're giving them permission. If you don't do step 2, when you say cabal I love you, you're giving them permission to do what they're doing, because they're like, okay, you love me, I'll do it then. I'll carry on to controlling you and going for world domination. So it has to be done with step 2. Step 2 on its own is a negative manifestation. You'll get more of the same. Step 3 on its own, you're giving them permission. It's the 2 together with step 1, which gives you the understanding. You can't do step 2 or step 3 without step 1, because if you do step 2 and say, I don't give permission, what are you not giving permission to? You don't know if you haven't studied the dark plan. With step 3, you say you love them. Who are they that you're loving? Why are you loving them? You don't know the dark plan. So it's step 1, 2, and 3. Now, within this download, and again, I will state this is like a 3-minute, I don't know, 5-minute astral projection out of body experience of this massive download. And as I said, I would have put all this into a book, but I can't. It has to get out now. I don't have time to just write this. Maybe I will at some point. So within this download, I was shown the analogy of the dragon. Now, this is very important. The dragon is part of this whole structure. The dragon energy is within this 3-step ascension process. Step 2 on its own is the lion. This is the power. But all of them together is the dragon. And this is why the dragon and the lion are so powerful. And they're often used in symbols and in dark symbols as well, because they understand the power. The lion is the boundaries, the sovereignty, and the dragon is the ecosystem of all of that together in complete balanced power. You will know, if you've read my book Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, that the 9 used the analogy of the dragon within Stargate Ascension, and what they teach is the dragon, you're calling the dragon energy, which is the earth energy, so celestial, but you've got this axis, this Excalibur Codex, this vertical axis, which runs right through planet Earth and the cosmos and Tiamat and the galactic core. It's all of it, because it's you and you're everything, right up to source. So the dragon analogy is a good analogy because it's the earth. It's the fundamental meridians of the earth. And are there actual dragon beings? Yes, there are, in multiple realities. And they were removed in their dragon form from this reality. Their energy is back. Do we potentially have a timeline where these majestic beings come back in physical form on Earth? Potentially, yes. It's in our past, therefore it's in our future. So there are many starseeds working with the dragon energy, and I absolutely honor you all. It's such a powerful way of working. The grid workers are working with the dragon energy as well, because they're working with the ley lines. So the analogy of the dragon, what they showed me was Ascension. If you are an Ascension teacher, whether you're just teaching your neighbor Ascension or, you know, a group of like 4 people, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be speaking to thousands on YouTube like I am. If you're an Ascension teacher, you're a dragon rider. So you are sat on the front of the dragon and you are holding, you know, you're sat on the dragon's back with its head in front of you, like in Game of Thrones, holding like the reins or the scales or whatever bit you're holding onto, and you're steering the dragon. You and the dragon are one. This is the entire empowerment within the Kundalini energy and the golden mean frequency. This is DNA activation on a very high level. So you are the dragon rider and you are holding onto the dragon, you're steering the dragon, but you're not really. You and the dragon are one, and you are both telepathically working together. This is the golden mean, the kundalini, this is the DNA. This is the DNA going through itself, creating a loop. It's all in Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame. I don't need to get into all of the DNA configurations. That's been discussed so much. I'm talking here about how to use the analogy of the dragon, which is the Stargate Ascension model, Stargate Ascension symbol, within this step 1, 2, and 3 that I'm teaching here. So the dragon, if you're a dragon rider, you're an Ascension teacher, you're sitting on the front of the dragon, steering the dragon. There's people behind you. You are carrying others through. You are teaching others to do this. So the people who are sat behind you, nice and sturdy behind you, they're not spiritual teachers necessarily. They're not, they can teach your material, but they are not creating a template or a teaching. So dragon riders are downloading information, their channels, or however you want to, they don't have to be channels. They're downloading information through these monadic structures, and they are teaching the templates. So they're the dragon rider. It's a difficult job. I know everybody wants to be the dragon rider, but it's not easy. But there are many dragon riders. There are many dragon riders that are doing such an amazing job, I have to say. So those behind you are sat sturdy along the dragon's back, which is very, very long. He's a huge, huge dragon, potentially millions of people. And there are many dragons, so you can choose whichever dragon you want. Or you can have your own dragon if you are downloading your own template, bringing forward your own teaching materials. If you're following another teaching material or a conglomeration, an eclectic mix of other teachers, then you can create your own dragon from that, or you can sit behind someone else on their dragon. But as long as you're sat on the dragon's back, sturdy, then you're smoothly going through this journey, through to this Stargate as you go through Ascension. These are the people that have done step 1, 2, and 3. They're sat sturdy on the dragon, and they are, or they're steering they're holding onto the reins, and they're the dragon rider. What this means is they are going through Ascension. They are ascending, and they are moving to the new earth. They are creating the new earth, if they've done step 1, 2, and 3. Now, there are some people who've just done step 1. They are aware and awake. They can see the dragons flying above them, but they can't quite get onto them. However, there are many dragons, and others will come, and as they move through step 2 and then 3, they can catch onto a dragon. Now, this is important, and this is going on massively in the light worker community right now, in the middle of a global pandemic and global shutdown. This is going on, and I'm not being stern or telling anyone off, because it's different. Everybody's pathway is different, but it's so important to get these steps. There are many that have gone straight to step 3. I don't necessarily mean that they're sitting there saying, I love the Cabal. What they are doing in step 3 is divinity, is all that I am thinking about right now. I'm sending violet light to everyone. I'm sending lots of love to the planet and to all of the Cabal. The Arcturians and the Pleiadians have got our back, without looking at step 1 or step 2. So they don't know the Cabal plan. They don't know the Cabal plan. They haven't integrated the emotions. They haven't made a declaration of sovereignty. They've simply gone to the love. This is happening all over. I'm hearing so many people, when I try to talk about the dark stuff, look what's happening here. Vaccines and electronic warfare and psychological attack, and this is going to happen and that might happen, and look at this timeline. It's like, I'm just going to stay within my divinity, and and that's fine if you've done step 1 and 2, and many are already in they've done step 1, they've done step 2, and they're in that divine place, and that's wonderful. They're dragon riders, or they're sitting on someone's dragon. But I've been speaking to people who are just like, the extraterrestrials will save us, the Pleiadians have got our back, you know, the all we need is divine love, and they haven't really done 1 and 2. A lot of these are crystal individuals because it's too dark. They don't like looking at it. So these people are ascending. They are going through ascension, but it's where they are on the dragon that is so important. And this is why I've been shown the dragon as a metaphor. The people who've gone to step 3, and many people might call them, you know, love and light brigade or fluffy bunnies, or, you know, and these are lovely people and they're wonderful and they're healers and they're fantastic. They just don't want to look at the dark stuff, and they don't want to make a declaration of sovereignty because it's all a bit sort of, you know, they haven't done step 1 and 2. So where are they on the dragon? I'll tell you where. They're either sitting on the dragon's tail or they're clinging on to the dragon's tail and hanging on. They're ascending because the dragon is the vehicle to ascension. One could liken it to the 5th dimensional Merkaba if one wishes. That's the Merkaba is actually the Stargate the dragon goes through. This is the DNA, but yes, it's all the same thing really. So if you're on the tail of the dragon, you're still ascending. You don't have to do step 1 and 2 to ascend. But how are you ascending? This is to do with what is coming. What is coming down the line? How will you deal with this when you continually sit in a love-light cave with violet light and the Pleiadians? And yes, they're wonderful. Absolutely. Violet light, Pleiadians, they've got our back. They have got our back. It's true. It's so true. But let's do step 1, 2, and 3 all together. So what's happening is when the dragon is moving through time space and moving through a quantum field, the dragon is flying. It's got little wings, but it uses its tail to gain momentum. It's not trying to flick people off of its back. It's using its tail to gain momentum. So as the dragon flies through time space, through the time matrix, I hope you're still with me here, it moves its tail from left to right like this. It moves its tail like this, okay? That helps it steer. Now, what happens to the people on the end of the dragon clinging onto its tail? They're being flung from left to right, flung around, clinging on. Some of them might get thrown off. Some of them might feel sick and nauseous. Some of them might go dizzy. This is how you are navigating the 3rd dimensional physical reality. Without step 1 and 2 and only 3, you are all over the place. Backwards and forwards, fear 1 minute, hope the next, distraught, despair, love, the higher beings, meditate, upset again, frightened, crying, back to love, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. This is happening in the New Age Lightworker community. They're on the back of the dragon, clinging on for dear life, on the tail, and they're being swung around. You need to get on the dragon's back. You need to climb up the dragon and sit sturdy on the dragon's back. And then you will ascend nice and smooth. How do you do that? Step 1 and step 2. When you do, it's okay if you've gone to step 3 and you're clinging onto the tail, because if you go back and do step 1 and step 2, you will get across the dragon and sit on the dragon's back. Or what you might even do is create your own template. So instead, you'll be clinging onto the tail of one dragon and another little baby dragon will come and find you, and you will jump onto that dragon and grow with that dragon, and it will be yours, and you will be the dragon rider. We're all dragon riders. I hope you followed this metaphor for this 3-step ascension teaching. What it is ascending whilst in this situation, because you are in what looks like a new world order reality, a control structure. Just throw those away. And but you still want to go through ascension, and it's not easy to move through DNA activation and all of those all of that knowledge you need whilst this is going on, because we've got this, as I said in the last video, this social information war going on and attacks going on and everything happening on multiple levels. So step 1, 2, and 3 will balance all that. because you can flip between them. So something new occurs as we go down the next few weeks or days or however long. Oh gosh, that's the cabal plan, is it? I didn't know about non-disclosure agreements. Sorry, not non-disclosure agreements. Yeah, non-disclosure agreements are being made by media personnel. What I meant to say is I didn't know about do not resuscitate orders. I didn't know that elderly people and people with special needs and long-term chronic health conditions were being made to sign do not resuscitate forms against their will. They weren't being forced, they were being persuaded. This has happened in the United Kingdom. Some of the GPs have withdrawn the forms and apologized, but these forms went out to people with children with special needs, children, to sign a do not resuscitate. Healthy children, autistic children are healthy children, to sign a do not resuscitate. Do not resuscitate doesn't just mean don't resuscitate if you go unconscious. It means you can't dial 999 or 911 if you're in America. I don't know if you've had the DNR forms over there or in any other country, but we got them here in the UK. You can't dial the emergency services and you can't ask for emergency help because you've signed a DNR. There was such backlash, and as far as I know, this has been withdrawn. This is part of the cabal's plan. So this is a new one that comes up. So you've already done step 1, 2, and 3. Oh, there I am. I've done step 1. Great. I know the cabal's plan. I've integrated all the emotions. I've been through the fear and the shock. Done it. Step 2. Yep. No permission. Done my declaration. 3. I love you. I love you. I love you. Done it. Bang. Non-disclosure agreement signed by your grandchild or your friend who's got an autistic son that you've known for 15 years. Emotion gets brought in. Oh my goodness me, what are they doing? And you go back to step 1 again. This is what is going to happen over the next few weeks. And if you are clinging on the dragon's tail, you're going to be flung around to the point where you could get flung off, or it's not an easy ride for you if you have not gone through step 1 and step 2. And what is step 1? Step 1 is integration. This is integrated ascension. You can go through ascension without integrating, but it's not necessarily going to be a pleasant ride for you. Integration is step 1, step 2, and step 3. So I hope I have sort of made sense here. As I said, I could sit down for the next few weeks and write an entire book on this download. It was a monad. So if you look at the Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, that's information from a monad, the whole book. So is Divine Architecture and Starseed Template. So is Masters of the Matrix. The other two were not monadic structures in the same way, Black Box Program and the Lessons from Living Lemuria. These are more like communications with the 9 and getting some information. But Masters of the Matrix, Divine Architecture and Infinite Helix were monads. This video is a monad. I've given you the entire monad as best as I can in this video. As I said, I would write a book with this, but there is no time to write a book. This needs to go out now. So I hope you've understood, and if you haven't understood, that's fine, because you'll have taken in the codices and the information, and then you may go away and have dreams yourself, or pick up something in a different way, formulate it in a different way, create your own template. And if that's what you are doing, then you are a dragon rider. I hope that that has, made sense. And there you go. That was my monadic download from the Milky Way galaxy and the asteroid belt and all these ancient cities. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and love you all. So lots of love. Namaste. Bye. In this transmission from the White-Winged Collective Consciousness of 9, I, Magenta Pixie, bring forward information specific to utilising the rose gold flame as antidote to 5G, EMFs, chemicals, chemtrails, and similar. The presented template utilises the Schumann resonance, and the technique is alchemical unification. In this book,
The 9 discuss synchronicity, discernment skills, and understanding of discordance and disharmony within truth and lightworker communities. They present a workable model of expression, assisting the spiritual explorer in creating a necessary toolkit. This allows the individual to construct a shield, bringing safety, harmony, expansion, and cohesive sovereignty into their own personal reality and their matrix field. I am pleased to present my new short book, The Black Box Program and the Rose Gold Flame as Antidote. What is karma? Are there ways we can balance this and become karma-free? Is there a particular nutritional plan we should follow for ascension? Do we increase our karmic balance by eating certain foods? How can we utilize sex magic to work with karma and move through ascension? There are many lessons we can learn from the peoples of ancient Lemuria, a civilization that existed before our known history on planet Earth. As we move through an ascension process collectively, we move back into a new Lemuria, and we take with us all the knowledge we have accumulated since those times. In this transmission from the white-winged collective consciousness of 9, key codes are presented for cellular memory recall, linking the reader beyond Atlantis and into the harmonious frequencies of the first physical civilization on the Earth, Lemuria. The 9 respond to questions using the Lemurian way as a template. Key-coded responses trigger activations within the reader as they receive the wisdom codes, standing as rainbow warriors of Gaia, moving into abundance, alchemy, and Stargate ascension. This transmission is dear to my heart, and I'm so very pleased to announce my new book, Lessons from a Living Lemuria.